still haven't heard about this issue. Because how many of you recall during the grand debate on Obamacare that the nation had, how many of you recall the debate when Nancy Pelosi or Harry Reid or Barack Obama came out, and in one of Barack Obama's, what did he give, 50 speeches, 150 speeches? I don't know, it was some enormous number of speeches. How many times do you remember him talking about the fact that we would be spending $105,464 million to implement Obamacare between now and 2019? Who remembers those speeches? I don't, because there weren't any. Now think of this. Here we have the greatest, most controversial, transformational piece of legislation that we have seen in our lifetimes. And there's no mention that, oh, by the way, oh, we forgot to tell you, I guess, there's $105 billion worth of money in this bill. This is a fraud. And this is deceit. What has been done to the American people. You should feel insulted. I can't think of any greater deceit. And it's almost like Washington, D.C. is a twilight zone right now. It's almost like people say, oh, well, so what? It was in the bill. Well, guess what? A certain lady, Speaker of the House, named Nancy Pelosi, famously said to all of us, we have to pass the bill.
What's in it?
We just didn't know the woman was a prophet. Right? She was a prophet in her own time. We did have to pass the bill to find out what is in it. I wonder what else is in this bill. If we're just finding out now that they put this money in, because this is how it works in Washington, D.C. They pass an authorization bill that creates a program. And that's all that bill does. Then they pass a second bill that funds the program. They don't, it's a two-step process. They don't do it in one step. Can you imagine why? Because we need time. We need time to think these things through if they're a bad idea. Is Obamacare a bad idea?
Yes.
Well, 54% of the American people have agreed with you for 49 weeks. Guess what? Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid, they figured out this is a bad idea. They're not going to like us if we put this through. So they decided in a very insulting manner to go against what you believe and reject what you think about this bill, and they decided to just throw the money in anyway. Because they wanted to make sure that no matter who gets elected in the next 8 years, it wouldn't matter. Because the results of the election would be neutralized. Because they've already written checks to themselves and post-dated those checks, and Barack Obama has the right to cash those checks every year. Last year he had one that was $6 billion. This year he has one for $5 billion. So when we talk about putting Obamacare into place and implementing it, it's not future, it's right now. As we are sitting here right now, the administration has already written over 6,000 pages of new rules and regulations. And you thought that a 2,900-page bill in the Senate was a big bill? Oh, honey, they're just getting started. This is a bill that will never finish being written. They have 159 new boards. So here you have you on one side, you have your doctor on the other. You used to have to fight with your insurance company. Now you have to fight not only your insurance company, you have to fight 159 boards and 6,000 pages of rules and regulations, all set up to say, no, 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 you can't have it. So again, you're paying more, you're getting less. Welcome to Obamaville. Oh, that's the future. Is that our future? No. That's not my future. New Hampshire, is that your future? No. Oh, I love New Hampshire. Let it rain or die. Their motto there is roughly transcribed to say, death to tyrants. So death to tyrants from Virginia and live free or die. In Minnesota, we're known as the Gopher State. We're pretty proud of that. Our motto is actually the Star of the North, and we are proud of that, but I am extremely proud of the origin of our nation. And you're it. You are the cradle of liberty right here in New Hampshire. And I cannot tell you how proud I am. And the fact that it is your ancestors who bled and died literally in the soil to be able to birth something called freedom. And I really do believe that we are on the cusp of watching that new birth of freedom again, because you made the down payment in November. You set the bar very high for the rest of the United States. You have given us a standard to which we may aspire. And I look forward for the next year and a half or 2 years to continue to be a part of this story, of the narrative, of calling the nation back to our roots of greatness, calling them back to remembrance of our Declaration of Independence, of the Constitution of the United States, and of the Bill of Rights that secured to the individual rights to keep us free and safe from a big, overweening government. Because that's how the Bill of Rights starts out. Congress shall make no law respecting my rights and your rights. And all the big people in the bubble known as Washington, D.C. love to turn that idea on its head and say, no, it's about making sure that government has rights. They are so foolish. They are so wrong. Because what they fail to understand, that again, the greatness of this nation is the sovereignty of the individual. That is the greatness. Because in our form of government, the individual is sovereign. And that's why the genius of American exceptionalism and the genius of our founders is the fact that we have personal governance. And the founders said, it starts with governing ourselves. When we govern ourselves, then we can govern our families. And then we can govern in our local neighborhood. We can govern, self-govern in our churches. We self-govern in your town hall meetings here in New Hampshire. And then you govern at your state level in Concord. And then we govern as a nation. But it doesn't work at all unless the individual is the sovereign. And can you imagine ever letting that go? Can you imagine any other nation in 5,000 years of recorded human history having a legacy like that of the United States? And so I am very much concerned about where our nation is at today. And I was one of only 6 people in the House of Representatives that voted no on the last 2-week continuing resolution in the United States Congress. Our budget is $3.8 trillion. Ouch. We will be in debt this year $1.65 trillion. Gosh. We are spending ourselves right off the cliff right now. And if we don't wake up and smell the coffee, those who are under 35 years of age will never know. They are the debt-paying generation, as we are. They will never know the freedom that we have known. They will know a far reduced standard of living. As a matter of fact, the conservative estimates are that those that are about the age of about 24 today are looking at a tax rate effectively of approximately 75% of their income or higher in all sources by the time they're at the age of maturity in their peak earning years. Is this the America that your parents bequeathed to you? Not me. My parents weren't willing to be selfish. My parents wanted better. Your parents wanted better. And if you go back to the time of the Pilgrims, there's been approximately 20 generations of Americans. And of course, we all know before that we're Native Americans on this continent. But if you go from the time of the Pilgrims forward with 20 generations, every generation on this soil, if you have asked them, do you live better than your parents? Have you progressed? Has our society progressed? Is your standard of living better than your parents? Every generation, for 20 generations, has confidently said, yes, I stand better because I stand on the shoulders of patriots who sacrificed and who gave for me so that I could do better. Every generation for 20 years. And now I ask an audience, do you believe that your children will enjoy a better standard of living than you have today? No. When we have 107 trillion of unfunded net liabilities staring us in the face right now. We've gone on a party, and government is spending money faster than we can earn it. We know how that movie ends. We've seen it in Greece with the riots. Now consider this. You have tea parties. What do tea parties do? They peacefully, quietly, it looks like it resembles you going to the state fair or a family reunion. They gather together and they say, we want less government. Yes. We want limited government. Yes. We want you to spend more. And then they pick their litter up after them when they're all done and they go home. That's right. The Tea Party. This group is considered very scary, very dangerous. Then you've got the radical progressives. You see them in Greece throwing Molotov cocktails and breaking glass, and in Spain and in the UK, and oh, maybe Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And what are they shouting for? More government, bigger government, more spending. What a compare and contrast. Do you see why the radical progressive left is so frightened about how powerful this little movement is, represented by tea? They're terribly frightened because your message, our message, touches people all across every political spectrum, every ethnicity, every income level, every spectrum of the United States, from Hawaii to Florida, from Maine to California, from Minnesota to Louisiana. Across the spectrum, the issue is the same. We are taxed enough already. Yeah. Government, live within your means. Respect the jurisdictional limitations of the Constitution of the United States. Yeah. And just as you brought the verve and the vibrancy to the 2010 election, that will be the verve and the vibrancy for 2012. Because I don't see Barack Obama changing his stripes between now and 2012. No matter how many marketers he has trying to rebrand him as the next Ronald Reagan, the next Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama, and we weren't born yesterday. Okay, I think we figured this one out. What we want is what we've always wanted in the United States. We want to republish those ideals of the Declaration of Independence in our hearts once again. That we have been given our rights, not by government. We've been given our rights by a creator. That's where they came from. It was a creator that made us, not ourselves. Yeah. We're made in the image and likeness of a holy God, and because of that and that alone, we're given rights that only He can give, not a government. That's what Thomas Jefferson wrote. He said, your rights are inalienable. Government can't give them to you. Government can't take them away. That's your right. Just because you're alive and a human being, you get them. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the pursuit of happiness means is the founders wrote, the right to keep the fruit of your labor. That's what it meant.